Dolphins fans, what is going on? Ben Morgan, Fins Up Network. We're kind of in that lull period between like the bulk of free agency and then the start of the NFL draft. The Miami Dolphins decided, you know what, we're going to make a little bit of noise here leading up to the draft. Give us something a little extra to talk about, and that is the signing of Chosen Anderson to a 1-year deal. Now, if that name doesn't really resonate with you, if it doesn't ring a bell, Robbie Anderson, that is who that is now. And actually, before he was Chosen Anderson, he was Robbie Anderson. And before that, he was Robbie Anderson with a different spelling of Robbie. Dude is going through a bunch of name changes and now kind of recently a bunch of team changes as well. But he is your newest Miami Dolphins wide receiver. And I personally feel the best way to talk about this signing is to talk about some pros and talk about some cons, because I'm sort of 50-50 on the signing in general. So I do want to hear what your thoughts are as well. Go ahead and drop those in the comments. And like I said, I personally feel like the best way to talk about this one is pros and cons. Now, I'll go into a couple of pros right away. Like I said, it is just a 1-year deal. I don't have the financials yet, but I would assume being a 1-year deal, we're not breaking the bank for this guy. We're not committing long-term to a soon-to-be 30-year-old wide receiver. So that is a pro in mine. He kind of falls into that proven vet category. Here's the other nice thing as well. The speed that he has, because yes, he still has decent speed despite aging. The speed that he has and the ability to create after the catch is actually a really good fit with what we do, with what we're looking to accomplish on the offensive side of the ball. So when his number is called for him to step in and contribute, he does fit with what we're trying to do. Now, before I get into more of like the con side of thing, I do want to talk a little bit more about the depth in the offseason at the position, because look at what we've got right now. You got Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Braxton Berrios, Eric Ezukama, Ced Wilson, River Craycraft, Braylon Sanders, Freddie Swain, and now Chosen Anderson. So if you're counting along, that is 9 wide receivers pre-draft that we're rolling into the offseason with. And that's kind of where we need to be right about now with the amount of offseason work that's lying ahead for us. Plus, if it's not an outright selection in the NFL draft, keep your eye on the position at an undrafted free agent as well. You know, you got to have camp bodies. We're probably not done adding to the position. We're going to roster 90 plus guys going into the offseason. And no, not everyone is going to make it. And I'm not going to talk today about whether or not I see Chosen Anderson making the final 53 or not. We got a lot of offseason left. We got a lot of things to unpack. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if we continue to add to the position as well. Now, also factor in a couple of things here. There are definitely some names being floated out that, you know what, if we could land a late round pick for in the draft, maybe a draft day trade, guys like Emmanuel Ogbah, Jerome Baker, Noah Igbenogany, Cedric Wilson, with the emphasis being there on Cedric Wilson. If you can dump that contract, you can get a late round pick in the process, and then you can basically fill the void left by that with a guy like Robbie Anderson, who he's not the wide receiver that he once was, but he's still capable of being a guy that can compete for a spot on that 53-man roster. So it's not an outright terrible deal for the Dolphins. But let's look at those cons, because the age, the lack of consistent production is the biggest probably con that anyone would have. But the first thing that came to my mind after seeing this news about signing him, it's kind of the personality fit. It's the locker room issues. It's the previous history that he's had, because we're not talking about the cleanest player right now, especially in regards to locker room fit and some things that he's done or said that could maybe stay in-house versus going out and publicly having to open up a can of worms. He's had arrest issues. He's had spats with coaches. He's had sideline blowups with teammates. He had the social media post. I think it was when the NFL or someone put out a tweet like, hey, would Baker Mayfield be a good fit with the Panthers? And he simply like tweeted it back saying no. And now it's like, okay, well, what happens if we end up getting Baker Mayfield? Now we got to deal with him and one of us wide receivers kind of getting off to the wrong foot. Now, Anderson did backpedal on that. He said he was basically coming to defense of Sam Darnold. But again, an example of something you could have just kept in-house. You don't need to go down that road. So like I said, he's far from clean from being like the model teammate or player that you could have around, which kind of goes against with what the Dolphins have been building ever since Mike McDaniel's been around. because ever since Brian Flores left and once Mike McDaniel was brought in, pretty much everything negative that was getting out, everything that we heard about, it's kind of gone away. Now, that's either because getting rid of Brian Flores and then maybe 2 or 3 type of players. I'm not going to say any names right now. Maybe that's a huge reason why that's gone. And they're simply just a better organization now, or they're doing a better job of hiding it. You can't rule that out either. But based on what not only I think, but based on what I'm being told as well, is that it's the Brian Flores and players issue. The entire vibe around the team, from the team in general, from the locker room to the coaches to the front office to all the employees in general, is probably as good as it's been. And that's in large part due to Mike McDaniel and the culture that he's brought in. So like I said, Robbie Anderson's a little bit of a contrast to that. So who knows? Maybe I called him Robbie. Maybe chosen Anderson, if he can kind of fit in and kind of gel to that and mold to that and get along with the teammates that he has. Because like I said, he's been jumping around recently, a few different teams recently. And I do hate to judge a player before he's actually here. But really all I've got to go on is what is out there. So I'm just reporting on what is out there. But that's kind of the skinny on Robbie Anderson there, a little pun, little play on words, because yeah, chosen Anderson is a pretty skinny dude. But like I said, I do want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts on the latest Dolphins signing in the comments. Let's carry on the conversation there. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you are getting subscribed with the draft coming up. I've got targets for positions that are not of need. I got 2nd-round targets. I got 3rd-round targets. I got a final mock. And then I'm going to do my alt-right draft predictions as well. So we got a lot of stuff planned here leading up to the draft. So get subscribed, turn on those notifications if you haven't done so already. But that's my take on chosen Anderson. And until next time, Dolphins fans, fins